This is a board, and this is going across.
All right.
Nice makeup.
Thank
I didn't
you.
see the edges. I did mine too. Can you see them?
You didn't see the edges?
I could see the nice edge work. The blending.
Thank you.
No!
Edges normally refers to like...
Blending?
No, like a haircut. Where it's like a super sharp, like
super
edges.
Sharp edge. Oh, okay. Well, this is not hair related.
Yeah,
This is
but that's
eye
okay.
related.
I like your terminology.
Yes, terminology. Thank you.
All right, welcome
Plus,
back.
it was a compliment.
It was a compliment.
But yeah, welcome back.
Welcome back to. I almost said spill the beans.
No.
But we're not spill the beans anymore.
We're the Tipsy Informants.
The Tipsy Informants.
Welcome back. We've been away for a
Round of
while.
applause.
Round of this.
Yeah. So.
We've been away for a little while.
Yeah. Well, I posted
Weather permitting.
up. Yep. I posted that Rodney Reed video.
Yep.
So that went up, but before that we were away for a little while. But we're back.
Hopefully
and
I don't have a big head anymore. Or
yeah, or maybe I
whatever. mean,
I
my
don't know.
shirt-
We had someone comment on our last video saying,
This
"Why is
doesn't
your
look
head
too
getting
big."
smaller?"
Yeah, I think it was the
And
jersey though.
I don't know if it was Jordan or
I don't
me
know.
that they were talking
I
about.
wasn't hurt.
But maybe they meant like smaller as in like maybe like they thought one of us had like a big head. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
your head's getting smaller. What's going on?
Yeah,
I don't
no.
know. Either way.
Maybe you got to be
I
more
would-
specific though. 'Cause
Yeah, you
leave
gotta
us
let
with-
us know who you're insulting next time.
Yeah, whoever we
But
don't. You can
I think
do
we
it.
both have like pretty normal sized faces.
Craniums.
Craniums, yeah. But yeah, welcome back to another episode of our podcast where
Coming
we
at
talk
you live.
about true crime, conspiracies, paranormal, and anything that we want to talk about.
Really? Anything. Doesn't matter.
Anything, yeah, it doesn't matter.
But this time
Size
is
of
a
our
little
faces.
our size of our faces. Our face is so big. See, the closer I get, the bigger my face is. So I don't know. What were you?
We entertain ourselves. Hopefully we entertain you.
It's true.
Yeah, cheers. Love that.
I-
It's alright, you know,
Goes
it's all
everywhere.
part of the...
Yep. Cheers to you guys.
So this week we're doing another true crime episode, and we're going to be talking about the new-ish documentary that came out on Netflix.
I binge watched that.
Yeah, we both did, called The Confession Killer.
The Confession Kill, which is kind of like a stupid name for it.
Really?
I don't know.
I guess it's kind of, I feel like
guess
it worked.
I guess if the confession is like based off of like true what's up that
Yeah.
happened, there's so many question marks in that.
Yeah,
in
there's
that
so many question marks with it.
documentary.
It's so crazy too because like the way they reveal it, you don't realize it at first. Like episode 1, when I was CJ and I watched it last night, and I was like, oh my god, I was like, this guy is crazy and horrible. And then I watched the rest of it today, and I was like, oh my god, head exploding.
I really, honestly, I don't really think the guy is crazy.
I don't think he is
he's
either at
crazy.
all.
I just think he's.
I think he had a bad life.
Dude, he got the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
When he was a kid. So many things. Like if you guys are out there and you guys are reading about this shit, so many things happened in his beginning of life till about, I don't know, mid-teens. So much shit happened to
Definitely,
him
yeah.
before 15.
Yeah.
Even with the Tool. I always I want to call him O'Toole for some reason.
I know, me too.
Otis O'Toole.
All right,
But
let's
it's not Toole. It's
we
not
should
O'Toole.
let's introduce the main guy.
Yeah, let's introduce him. That's a good idea.
Yep. So the Netflix documentary, it's about this guy named Henry Lee Lucas.
And it's limited.
Who is it? They're gonna like take it off?
I think it's limited. That's what I saw.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So watch it now while you can, because it's really interesting. It's really good.
It is.
And it's about this guy named Henry Lee Lucas, who is kind of like a self-proclaimed serial killer. Yeah. So, should we you want to get into his childhood?
Just jump off that diving board.
All right. So we're going to give you kind of like a little bit of a background, which I feel like is what we normally do here. We give a little bit of background and then we get into the...
Just go with the ending first.
Yeah, and then we get into the meat of the story. But so Henry Lee
Medium rare,
Lucas's childhood, he was born on August 23rd, 1936 in rural Virginia.
Now remember that.
Yeah, and August 23rd is actually my mom's birthday. I was like, oh shit.
Wow.
Not 1936 though, so.
No, well, that's...
She'd
okay.
be really, really old if that were the case.
She'd be Walker old.
Yeah, right?
But like 1936, you gotta remember that.
And
Because
that
it's
he was basically born in like the backwoods
Yeah.
of Virginia.
Yeah, like...
Yikes.
Like, fucking back there, man. You're not even on a... You're on a map, but like where you are isn't even on it.
Yeah.
It's not labeled.
You're like somewhere.
Yeah. Somewhere.
Yeah.
Like,
We're not trying to insult anyone.
No, we're not. It's just the year. 1936.
Yeah.
36 to 46. That's 10
like
years.
backwoods
so
Virginia now is not really backwoods, but 1936 backwoods Virginia is very
you don't
like
see anything.
Nothing.
You got nothing
super
going
rural.
on. That's why all this stuff happened out there. That wouldn't happen now.
Yeah. Not at all.
Oh, let's get more into it.
So he grew up in poverty, and
Yeah.
they lived in a one
One
log cabin.
Yep.
It's so crazy. Can you imagine living in like
How
a
many
log
people live there?
cabin?
5?
Yeah, 4 or 5. So it was like his mom, his dad. I know he had a brother, and did he have one other
I
sibling?
thought he had like a cousin.
Maybe a cousin. Yeah. So his family life was pretty like volatile growing up. Both his parents are abusive. His mom was a prostitute and would bring her clients back to their home and supposedly force like her kids to like watch her and her clients have sex.
Yeah. You ain't lying.
Yep. And
That's
then
what's so fucked up. That's like OKC.
that would totally fuck you up. Yeah.
OKC. And she would like beat the crap.
Yeah,
There was a time where he like he didn't do like one like easy chore or whatever, he gave her a hard time. She beat him over the head with like a block of wood.
That's crazy.
And he was in a coma for like the day.
That's insane.
And then you wake up and
what a horrible person too.
oh yeah, well she's an alcoholic. It all
Yeah.
starts with something.
Yeah.
Like you drink and you get angry and the home life is, I mean, being a prostitute, it's
And
not
being
really that,
poor and broke.
that doesn't help either.
Yeah. And then his father had lost both his legs in a railroad accident. He fell onto like the track, right?
And the train, and they called him like 2 legs or something.
I know,
It's
2
just-
legs Lucas.
He would
So
in order to
sad.
try and up the income a little bit, even though he didn't have any legs, he would try and go to sell, what was it, pencils?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
he
was
would
bad.
sit on like a cardboard, like, just like a
Yeah,
flat
thing,
box.
like a pillow or whatever.
And
But remember,
try to sell pencils like on the side of
40s.
the road. Yeah.
not many roads out there for you to go and sell your pencils on.
That's true.
And it's hard to get there too.
Probably not a big pencil market.
Not really, no.
And his father was also an alcoholic. And I read this one thing that said that his mom would let like her clients that she would bring home or like her boyfriends not only beat her kids but also beat her husband because he has no legs. He can't really move around. How's he going to
defend himself?
Exactly.
How's he going to get away from anything?
It's just so sad.
Didn't he pass? Oh,
yeah, he
he-
died of pneumonia.
because I read that he was like he was like left outside.
Yeah, like he was super drunk and then he either passed out outside or like the mother like left him.
He left, and it was like
Freezing.
very, very cold.
Yeah.
What dude? That's so rude.
I know.
You thought the comments were rude, or at least all 2 of them.
Yeah.
That's rude. You just don't do that.
I know.
Like, what the fuck?
I know.
Where are the 1940s morals?
We're
Out the
none.
window. Oh, sorry.
We're none.
Sorry, Wall. Wall was in my way. But anyway, keep going. You're doing. She's so good at this.
And then, yeah, so his parents are abusive. They would let their kids fight. And he actually, so I didn't realize that, like, he had lost his eye. Because, like, I knew, like, when you watch the documentary or you see photos of
With a
him,
knife.
his eye is all fucked up. But I thought his eye was just, like, I thought it didn't work. I didn't realize he literally lost his eye.
One of the first things I looked up because I was like, something like he
Yeah,
had
there's obviously
stroke
something wrong with his
or like
eye.
whatever. So he had no. He didn't the first time it was the first time I think he could see a little bit, and he still had his eye, and then something else happened. Yeah,
right?
It was like got infected or did something. He got stabbed in the face or something.
Yeah, so like his parents would like let
them
horseplay and fight, and his brother like stabbed him in the eye. I don't think he meant to do it though. Probably not, but he was still like holding something, like trying to stab at his brother.
Well, I've heard of a story. One of my mom's friends who passed away a while ago. He witnessed a kid running around in the yard with an ice pick because he was having fun just running around, and they had like an ice bucket and like, and he would, you know, pick. Yeah, it's not like now you just go to like a store and get ice. So he was stabbing the ice and he was running around and he tripped.
Oh, did he die? Oh my god, into his eye?
Yep. I don't think he died, but he definitely got it in the eye with a pick.
That's horrible.
That's not fun.
No, it's not fun at all.
But Lucas thought it was kind of cool that he lost his eye because in his school, he would like
so he got a glass eye because his eye was replaced. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I understand, like, you got a glass eye and now you're like playing with it. I would probably maybe do the same thing. I'm not really sure.
I feel like it would feel so weird to like take it in and out. I don't know.
But
I guess you gotta take it out to probably clean it.
Yeah. Well, he was a very dirty man.
Yeah, he probably was.
That's why he probably got the goddamn eye infection in the first place.
Yeah, probably, because
he's so dirty.
He was stabbed in the eye, and then I doubt they took him to a doctor or anything, so it probably just got worse and worse until I bet one of his school teachers probably took him to the doctor or something.
Yeah, he went to school because his mom, well, I don't know, I'm going to jump ahead into the thing. His mom used to get angry with him and then send him to school wearing, you know, clothing.
Yeah, his mom would like cross-dress him, and she was like...
She would send him, and the teacher like saw that he was wearing that, and kids would make fun of him and everything. So the teacher gave him like a t-shirt and pants, but his mom like got livid at that, brought him home, and... like beat him? Pulped.
I guess she also, or at least he claimed that she also dressed him up because she wanted to like eventually like pimp him out as like a... Yeah. You know, cross-dresser or like...
Or just women's clothing, and dude comes in, and that's how they made money. Yeah. So for him, that's why throughout the whole documentary, he was like, you know, comfortable, and, you know, he would have his coffee and his cigarettes. That was his thing, coffee and cigarettes. So he would have his coffee and his cigarettes, and he would be going in planes to these different places and buy car. Like, his prison life changed. Yeah. I don't blame him for admitting to all of the things that he may or may not have done. Yeah. Because of the treatment.
He had never been treated so well,
Nobody gave a fuck about him.
Yeah, nobody gave a shit about him growing up, and he was treated horribly. But so, he basically dropped out of, like, middle school, and middle school or high school, because he was, like, it's unclear at what age exactly he left home, but sometime in his teenage years. Some accounts say, like, 14, some say 16. But so he ran away from home, and then on June 10th, 1954... he was convicted for several counts of burglary, and he was put in prison for 4 years. Now, he was originally only supposed to be in for 2, but he actually escaped. And then they caught him like a couple days later, so his sentence was another 2 years was added on. Which that's so crazy. But again, I guess it's 1954. It's probably a lot easier to escape jail back then than it would be now. But so after being released, he... actually moved in with his half-sister in Michigan, which is pretty crazy that, like, despite all of the horribleness between his family members, that he was actually close enough with a family member to still be able to, like, move in with them after being in jail. I know, it's crazy.
From Florida to
it's crazy that they would, I feel like back in the day, that they would still have contact with all of these people, too.
Well, no, you probably wouldn't. You would probably... like, say, okay, I'm done.
Write them a letter or something.
I'm going to steal a fucking car. The person's going to call and say, oh, yeah, my car is... like, it's not like today. Like, you call, oh, my car, an hour, you know, sooner, they know where it is. Yeah. Back then, I mean, people knew about shit that was going on by phone calls. If you weren't home, you weren't home. So these guys probably, or he probably stole a car, however he did that. Yeah. drove to
Michigan.
wherever, because I mean, think about it. There's not as many roads.
Yeah.
So you would only be able to get places via the highway. He would just show up and be like, "Hey, what's up?
I'm gonna live with you now." Yeah.
2 weeks later,
I guess that's true.
it'll bounce.
Yeah.
He was stealing it. It was so like easy for them because they became so used to it.
Yeah.
Which people, I guess, don't think about. We have some time on our hands.
Yeah.
We have excellent notes and funny conversations about stupid shit like this, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it is.
But I forgot to compliment Callie on camera about her remarkable notes.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
But so,
Moving on.
yeah, after being released, he moved in with his half-sister in Michigan. We're not sure how he got there. Maybe he stole a car and drove up there and was like, "Hey, I'm crashing with you."
What's up, sis?
But so, yeah, he lived with her for a little bit, and then
Weeks? Months? Years?
I think it was like maybe like a year or 2 years.
It seems like that.
Yeah. And so his mom actually, so I don't know if this is his half sister like from his mom or his dad. I don't really know. But maybe his mom. Or I was gonna say maybe his dad.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really say, but his half sister. So, but his mother went to visit him in Michigan, and he was like engaged to some other person, and his mom didn't like her and didn't approve of her, so they would get in fights about that all the time. And the mom was trying to convince him to basically go home so he could take care of her as she was like dying, basically.
Yeah.
And so
What was wrong with her?
She's just old, yeah. So during an argument though, he basically like stabbed her in the neck after she hit him with a broom. So, but he says that he doesn't even really like remember doing it, that he basically like remembers them arguing, her hitting him in the head, and then
with a broom
stick?
stick?
And then him like looking down and she's like on the floor with like a knife in her neck.
I remember him talking about that because he thought he just smacked her in the neck,
Yeah.
but he was
actually like stabbed her. Yeah.
Uh-oh. That's bad.
Yeah.
Who smacks somebody in the neck, first of all? If I ever get into a fight, that's what I'm going to do.
That would actually probably really hurt.
It would probably hurt.
Yeah. So, yeah, he fled and was later arrested in Ohio because he was, like, picked up by, like, a state trooper, like, walking on the side of the highway or something. So they were like, this dude looks suspicious.
Like,
and then they figured out who it was. And then, so he was sent back to Michigan, and he was sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison. But he actually spent the first 6 in a psychiatric hospital, which I think is pretty interesting because that obviously proves that he needed it.
Yeah, but he also got electroshock therapy.
Did he?
Yeah. And the funny thing, I think the funny thing I read was, I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. But while he was, were you looking at your curls?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. They're gorgeous.
Thank you.
So he was in there getting electroshock therapy, and
Yeah.
they were, I guess during that period of time, he was also being like questioned. But the more he
during electroshock therapy,
I guess
like after sessions
like after
or whatever. Yeah.
But the more he went for the electroshock therapy, the more he would want to like keep kind of like going back. He would go back for electroshock therapy, and then he would come out and he would talk about stuff, and then he would go back for electroshock therapy. But he liked it.
Well, I don't know if it would be because of this, but I know some people, it said that after electroshock therapy, they like have a sense of euphoria after.
Like a high?
Yeah, like a super strong high.
Fucking
So
hell.
maybe that's why. He was like, give me more.
He was like, coffee, cigarettes, electroshock therapy.
Yeah, maybe.
So much fun.
That's crazy.
But
yeah, I didn't know that.
Because he would get that. Oh, back then.
But he was a 60s man. Electroshock therapy.
Dude, back then they thought that was either that or
I think they still use it now
or,
for like rare cases or to help with like schizophrenia.
Because he had he was beaten so bad, like you all your stuff is not there.
Yeah.
And the stuff that's not there you're gonna choose to put stuff in its place.
Exactly. And yeah, there was in that documentary they show like a scan of his brain where like his frontal lobe had damage,
section,
like severe damage, which is where like your empathy,
this is like the no zone,
and your passion is all basically made in your brain.
If you're gonna get hit like over here. Try not to get this area.
So if that's damaged, that's like it affects your brain's way of being able to properly think about that kind of stuff.
Empathy, compassion, that's all like up in the air.
Yeah.
That woman was awesome.
The
chick with the glasses. The documentary.
She worked for like Time magazine or something. Yeah, and she was the one that talked about his like damage in his brain.
Yeah, she was all like knowing what
she
was. About.
She did know what she was talking about.
Oh, you know what? This is did you notice this is about him smoking? Did you notice in the film he smoked so much his pointer finger on his smoking hand was like tar color?
Oh my god, I didn't notice that. Oh, gross.
That's how much
his teeth were just so gross.
One here, and one like he had like
and
3
just
or 4
like they were
teeth,
so long
and they were like
just yellow.
They were like this. Hey guys.
I had such a hard time like looking at the screen whenever
I was just like, oh my, like you're probably like, oh my god, but I'm like, wow, his finger is like brown.
I didn't notice that. I'm not surprised though. Dude, he like smoked constantly.
Oh, dude, the cops gave him cigarettes.
I know.
To keep talking and keep talking and keep talking, and then his mental thing with the holes, like his time. We'll get into that. Moving
on. But so yeah, he spent 6 years in a psychiatric hospital, and then after 6 years, they basically said he was fine, and then he was released into prison for another 4.
Do you know which one? Which hospital?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
And then so he was released after 10 years on parole. Due to overcrowding in the prison.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy that someone could literally get released after murdering someone.
Yeah, but like, wouldn't you think that they would keep some others in there? Like he's a murderer. Mm-hmm. So why would they release someone like that versus somebody with like petty theft or like Grand Theft Auto or?
That's what I mean. I can't believe they would release someone who's charged with murder.
I concur.
Murder.
Red Rum.
But yeah, so I do remember Red Rum.
I was like, Red Rum, what the fuck is this? Oh, there's a mirror.
So in 1971, Lucas, this was like 1 year after he was released from prison. He tried to kidnap 2 teenage girls and was sentenced to another 4 years in prison.
Why?
And then, I know, like, obviously this guy is, like, bad news. And then upon his release, he actually married a woman that he had begun a pen pal relationship with while he was in prison. And then, like, 2 years or, like, a year or something after them being together, he left her because she accused him of molesting her 2 older daughters.
Which he may or may not have done, but from
he probably did.
The things that he had learned as a child, probably were like, this is how we do it in the family.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Oh, yeah, we forgot to mention, too, that his dad, like, would basically taught him how to have sex with animals, and then anytime he had a pet, his mom would kill it.
Yeah, but they weren't, like, live. They were all the animals that his dad taught him to do stuff with were all deceased, which doesn't make it any better, but I just wanted to clarify that.
So gross.
It's bad.
It's really
like,
bad.
What the fuck else I mean, right now, if I was out there, I'd probably just, like, day to day, play guitar, do any of it. Like, they're fucked up, man.
Oh, yeah. Like, what are their day-to-day activities?
Yeah. I mean, you gotta make money somehow,
gross.
but they decided to do it in a different way.
Yep.
I guess.
So then he left her, and then he kind of, like, moved around for a little bit, and then he eventually settled in Jacksonville, Florida, where he met his alleged partner in crime, Otis Toole,
Ugh.
and moved in with him and his family.
Otis.
And I didn't do that much research on Otis, but Jordan, I know you did.
I did. I
I
did do some research on Otis, and Otis had just like even kind of more of like a fucked up past. He was born in 1947. In Florida.
Like 11 years older.
Mm-hmm. He apparently,
younger.
Well, yeah, he apparently committed his first murder at 14.
That's crazy.
He had with Henry Lucas, they met at this like soup kitchen, and they instantly formed a relationship. I mean, putting them together, it works.
Yeah.
But he would, he had a sexual relationship with him, and they committed crimes. Still looking at you, girls? That's so funny.
A little bit.
So funny. Once, 47. He was raised by a single mother, and his father deserted them. His mother was really, really cruel, just like the other guy's mom was.
Yeah.
He after it's funny.
What?
Not funny, but funny. He was picked up by a traveling salesman who forced him to have sex, and he ran the man down with his own car. That's his first murder.
Oh, that's his first murder?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like, it's messed up, Kelly.
That is messed up. How old? So he was 14 when that happened?
Yeah. He was 14 when he was picked up by the salesman. And then he just ran. I mean, what would you do?
Was it just like one night or something? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, just picked him up or whatever, and so his back to his mom. His mom was really cruel. She used to, kind of do the same things with him. He was molested, and he was forced to dress up and go to school and do all that stuff and cross dress, and he was.
I almost wondered too, because the two of them, Henry and Otis, would feed off of each other, and I almost wonder if some of their backstories, if they kind of fabricated them to be similar to each other's,
It could be,
or how much of it is actually verified.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I would if everything was still the way it is and they were both still alive and both still in prison, I would go and interview them. It would be really weird. I would try to not make it awkward on my part, but their upbringings were pretty much close.
Yeah.
Oh, well, except for Toole's grandmother, she was very religious and supposedly a Satanist, and she would show him satanic rituals and perform satanic rituals, which I think he may or may not have spoken about in the documentary. However, on YouTube or other sources, there are different interviews with him.
Yeah.
Of what he did. He was almost like, it's almost like Toole. He was more like someone that you would have believed did the crimes
than Henry.
Said. Yeah, than Henry. Henry didn't really seem like from what I read, Henry was a guy who would kind of say what he was going to do before he did it.
Yeah.
And Toole just did
talk
it.
a big game.
He would just do it. It's
impulsive.
Henry would be like, I'm going to shoot you if you don't cooperate. Toole was like,
bang. I shot you.
Done. He didn't give you any warning.
Yeah.
He would just do shit. And that's bad. The whole thing is fucked.
Yeah.
But I had another website that told me a better thing about. He was a victim of incest at the hands of many of his close relatives, his older sister, his next door neighbor. His material grandmother was a Satanist, just mentioned that. And she dubbed him... she also taught him self-mutilation. She taught him grave robbing and dubbed
Oh my
him
god.
and dubbed him the Devil's Child.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
They both had Lucas and Tool had similar IQs though. They're all like 70s.
Is that low?
That's wicked
Okay.
low.
Yeah.
Bundy had fucking. He had a wicked IQ.
He was like really smart.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that? Before we go back into like notes and all that stuff, I think Tool went into prison and was in a cell across from Bundy.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Bundy was arrested in Florida, right?
I think so.
I think at one point, yeah. So
yeah,
that would
so
make
they
sense.
were right across from each other, and that's.
So did Tool grow up in Florida?
I don't recall, Kelly.
I feel like maybe he did because then
Texas and Florida, but
I was like Texas, Florida. That's hilarious. I was like, I didn't know that was a place.
No, he grew up in Florida.
That makes sense because because when Henry moved in with him, he not only moved in with Tool, but he moved in with Tool's sister, their mom, and his niece. So basically, his entire family plus his sister now had a daughter.
True. He as for Tool and what he did, he didn't care if you were a dude or a woman or a kid. He didn't care.
Yeah.
And all of his crimes that he did was fire, which he got sexually aroused by.
Oh.
Which is weird because he broke into some guy's house, locked him in his house, and started the house on fire.
Oh my god.
And the guy passed away. So he got off on fire, knives,
That's crazy.
shooting, and that's why when these two guys clicked, they clicked.
And it was like bad news.
You have the States, and you have everywhere that these things happened.
Yeah.
And them traveling and picking people up and either robbing them, that's how that was their full-time job. They just drove around, picked people up, robbed them. They robbed other places like banks. Yeah. They robbed places like convenience stores.
Yeah.
And they were on a mission. But back then, if you called the cops, you're on to the next state.
Yeah, exactly.
No time.
But so they like moved around for a little bit, but the thing is too though, I don't know if I believe everything that they claim to have done because the two of them kind of fed off of each other. Like how much of it is actually proven?
Not much.
Like, was that thing with the fire, was that proven, or did he just claim to have done that? That was proven? Yeah. I feel like you're right, though, where I feel like...
Yeah, that was proven.
With, Tool, I feel like more of his crimes were actually proven to be true versus Henry. I feel like you're right, where Tool was the one that actually did stuff, whereas Henry...
He just kind of went with it, in a way.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't have any... He didn't really care. Dude, the guy was mentally, like, impaired. He had one eye.
Yeah.
He was, like,
And he finally found someone that he connected with, and actually, friends. Like, they had friends. They also had a sexual relationship.
They did. And, I don't know what went on, who did what with who, and all that stuff, but I know that
in the documentary, it said that Otis was homosexual, and Henry would be on the receiving end of it. That was, like, literally the words in the documentary.
That's
I was like, that's a really weird way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying they're in a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
But they basically made it sound like Tool was a top guy and Henry was a bottom. Which, whatever, to each their own. I don't
care.
No, it was funny the way the documentary phrased it.
Yeah, it was weird. It's so, right now, Netflix is putting out a documentary on Now. And now people are, like, very, like, eggshelly.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta say things in a very specific type of way, or somebody, God forbid, might get offended.
I know, but I thought it was weird how they phrased that, because I feel like that almost sounds, I don't know.
It sounds worse than just
saying like they were in a homosexual relationship.
Henry, Otis was banging Henry. That's what happened.
Yeah.
But that's how they connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Nothing.
It's not my fault.
I know it's
I'm
not.
just a freaking reporter reporting.
All right, let's
NBC.
get back on track here.
We always get off track.
So, all right, so let's get back.
Okay, back to notes.
So, Henry moves in with Otis, and they're living with him and his family. And this is where Frida Becky Powell, I don't know why her nickname is Becky, but she somehow has a nickname Becky.
I don't know why they called her Becky either, because she didn't even really know. They just nicknamed her Becky.
Yep.
I think of Beyonce with Becky in the hair.
Why?
Because on Beyonce's Lemonade album, she mentions Becky because
Oh.
of Jay-Z and cheating and shit. Becky with the good hair.
Jay-Z cheated on her? Wait, what? Are you sure?
Yeah.
What? When did that happen?
I loved this a while ago, before Lemonade.
Oh.
When was Lemonade released?
I don't know.
I forget.
I'm not really a
I
big
love that
Beyonce
album.
fan. Do you?
That is an awesome album.
I don't listen to
Dude,
Beyonce.
Dude.
I
that
think
is a
she's
great
super
album.
talented. You know what I used to love Beyonce? Like Dangerously in Love. I loved that album. I was a really big Destiny's Child fan, but now I just think Beyonce's kind of overrated. But so Frida Becky Powell, she was Tool's niece, and basically she became super close with Lucas. And then when she was 13, her grandmother died, and then her mom committed suicide. Just so sad and horrible.
It is.
And they
but
weren't the state wasn't gonna let her live with Tool, probably because of his criminal background. And so she was put into a state facility. And then Lucas
like a
convinced
nursing home?
no,
Just like a
a home for not like a foster home, but basically where kids go if they're not in foster care.
Oh, okay. That type of home.
Yeah. And so Lucas convinced her basically to escape and run away with him, and that was about when she was 15. And
Isn't that the chick that he loved?
yeah.
He was like that. He was like a
She was the only woman he ever loved.
Yeah.
So he convinced her to run away with him and claimed he was the only woman that he ever loved. And they kind of did a little bit of traveling and stuff too, and then they settled in Texas, where the two were hired to care for an elderly woman named Kate Rich.
Oh, poor Kate.
I know. So eventually the two of them were fired after being accused of falsifying checks on Rich's bank account. And then Lucas claimed that him and Becky got in a fight at a truck stop in Texas, and she basically just left him there.
Well, she went with a trucker.
Yeah, she left with a trucker.
And they got married.
No, that was the fake Becky.
That was the fake Becky?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm getting my... Sorry.
You're getting... So there was a fake Becky. At one point you are getting your Beckys mixed up.
Jesus.
But so there was a fake Becky.
Bloody hell.
But so, if you watch the documentary, you'll understand what we're talking about. There was a fake Becky, which we can get into in a minute.
I know
after.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, that was the fake Becky.
It's not like I don't know I'm wrong.
That was supposedly the fake Becky, because so basically,
Thanks for sticking up.
Basically, what happens is no, that woman was the actual fake Becky, but I'll get into this now.
I'm getting into this now.
But so. Kate and Becky had both been reported as missing, and Henry was interrogated and asked about them. And then he didn't confess to it at all, but they kind of figured it was probably him. So then Lucas was arrested in June of 1983 by a Texas Ranger for an outstanding warrant that he actually told them about himself.
He was so
he was just so open about talking about
it wasn't
stuff. He was such an
He was just give me coffee and cigarettes.
He
and I'll
literally
just talk until I'm blue in the face.
So when they were
he was
asking
interviewed so much,
and when they were interviewing him about Kate and Becky before he had actually been arrested or anything, they had a ton of information and files on him, and he was like, "Oh, so you know about my warrant?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, what's your warrant for?" And he was like, "Oh, the one from I think Ohio or something, whichever state he said. And they were like, oh, yeah. So then they found it.
Yeah.
And then they arrested him for the outstanding warrant that they wouldn't have even known about if he didn't bring it up.
But he doesn't, see, that's the thing, he doesn't give a fuck, because if he gets arrested, he's going to a place that's, like, you know, he's going to get fed.
I was going to say that he'll be provided for.
Yeah, so he's no big deal. He has a place to stay.
And he's already been in prison so many other times. He's just like, okay, whatever. But so then he gets arrested for his outstanding warrant, and then he confesses to murdering Becky and Kate.
Yeah, why?
And so...
I forget why he did that.
I don't remember why. I think he just decided to... I'm sure something in the interrogation.
You know, maybe it just comes down
or maybe he actually did it.
Control.
So,
he
fragments...
just wanted to change the channel.
Fragments of Kate's bones were apparently found in Lucas's wood stove. Which she claims to have burned her there. But the thing is, I don't think they were ever proven to be human bones or animal bones.
They were. I thought they said they were hers.
I don't think
he burned her in there.
So that's what he claimed. But I don't think that they ever actually proved, like DNA proved it was hers.
No,
or not.
they didn't. They did a fucked up job with the whole DNA thing, dude.
But
you know what the problem was? The problem was the beginning of the investigations of all of these things that happened.
Yeah.
Nothing was clean.
Yeah, they just wanted him to be guilty.
They just wanted cases.
But in this case, he probably was guilty.
Yeah.
Because then he led the police to where he buried Becky's body, and they found bones.
And
they found the body.
He was wicked precise though.
And he was really precise about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, he was, because he led them directly to where he had spread her bones out into different
He would put this part here and that part there, and this part here and that part there.
And he led them to where all of it was.
And find it. That part was amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap.
So
I didn't remember that without spray paint.
Yeah, I don't think they ever actually confirmed that DNA evidence that it was these two people, but I think it's pretty clear that it probably was.
DNA took forever.
Yeah, back then.
You would have to send it out.
It was super expensive too. And so they probably were just
Money.
This guy led us to the body. These are the two missing women, so it only makes sense that it's
They went off his word more than anything.
Yeah.
But then, keep going. We'll get to the end then.
So then during his trial, he made the comment, "Judge, what are we gonna do about these 100 other women I killed?" And that's what kind of
It kept going up. Are you getting cold?
I am getting cold because the heat's off.
There's a draft.
And so that's what kind of started this.
Blanket?
No, it's okay. That's what kind of started this whole
spiel.
Yeah, this whole thing. This whole circus.
It's so fucking interesting, and we're definitely gonna be. This is just the first one we've done about this type of situation.
Like a serial killer?
Yeah.
We'll definitely cover more stuff like this
absolutely. But this is interesting because not only does it involve Henry, but it involves this other dude. And it correlates.
And the government.
And the government and the police. And it was over, you see this guy getting on planes and going to places.
It's so crazy.
He's just going to keep admitting to things and saying, oh yeah, she was wearing blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. But the weird shit is, that all matched up.
Yeah, but the
cops were also I felt like the cops were feeding him information.
So we'll get into that.
Yeah,
because
sorry.
I'm it's okay. You're going ahead.
Freaking out, man.
I know, and they probably have no clue what we're talking about unless they've watched the documentary.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Nice point. Yeah, I'll shut the fuck up for a little bit.
No, it's okay. Don't shut up. Just let's stay on track because we can talk about that, but we need to explain it.
I also didn't realize we were 45 minutes into it.
Are we? Holy shit. Okay. Okay.
It's good.
So so the Lucas Task Force, and that's basically what Jordan has been talking about throughout this whole episode when he's like, they're flying him to planes and they're doing this and this. So basically, while he's in prison for the murders of
My
Kate,
bad.
It's okay. And you know what? Most of these people have probably watched the documentary, so they probably know what you're talking about.
I would hope so.
Yeah. So while in prison for the murders of Kate and Becky, Lucas basically continues to talk about all the other people he's murdered, and he had already been, I guess, a suspect in murders in other states as well.
Mm-hmm.
So these states started to reach out to the Texas Rangers about him, and Ranger Phil Ryan was tasked with getting information from Henry Lee about the murders. So this is when Henry starts to draw these, like, photos.
He was good.
Yeah, of, like, the women
Good
that
artist.
he had apparently killed, writing details around, like, the photos about the murders. And they basically sent out these photos to other law enforcement agencies to try and solve those murders. And I don't know if this was, I think a lot of it was just bullshit, wasn't it? Or did...
Like the drawings?
Yeah, or did any of it wind up actually matching up?
I think a lot of it matched up.
Did it?
Mm-hmm. Which was weird. Which is what they found was weird. Because he would know things.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how he knew things because, like, you're looking at the guy.
Yeah.
And low IQ and all this stuff. Like, how does he know this shit?
Yeah.
Where's he getting this information from? Is he getting it from, like, Tool? How is
Yeah.
he communicating here? And how is he communicating there? But he, like, everything he was drawing,
Yeah.
it matched up.
It's hard to tell with the timeline, too, if
Timeline's
he
weird.
had started to draw these photos of the women
That's why I
before
wanted
the
the
task
log.
force was created, or was it, like...
They created it because of that.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. They created the task force because they couldn't just do it, these three dudes.
And then it started to, like, match up.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I thought. All right. So then they sent these photos out to other law enforcement agencies, basically to try to solve some of these murders. And so Jim Bootwell, who was a ranger...
I think it's Botwell.
Oh, is it Botwell?
I think it's Botwell.
No, you're totally right. It is Botwell. Was told that he might want to investigate Henry for a string of murders along I-95 that he had believed to have been committed by a serial killer. So Jim Botwell set up this task force called the Lucas Task Force.
Those days would just drive around. They had nothing better to do.
Right? And basically to investigate all these claims by Lucas. And so Sergeant Prince, who was also, I think, a ranger, or was working with the Rangers, was put in charge of the task force. And basically him and Botwell, like, worked together as partners during this. And what's interesting is they claimed it was, like, a coordinating task force and not an investigative one. And basically, it was a coordinating task force because they weren't trying to investigate any of Lucas's crimes. They were just trying to basically set Lucas up with the right people who were in charge of investigating the crimes that Lucas was claiming to be involved in.
Yeah, that's why they had to travel. That's why they tried to buy car, buy plane. But then, after they did the car and plane thing, they had people, like, come to them.
Yeah, they started having people come to...
more sense.
Yeah, so...
But they would take him to these places where he would say, oh, this is blah, 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 and this is blah, blah, and they would go there and they would find shit.
Well, that happened, I think they were doing that around in Texas. They were taking him to basically different crime scenes in Texas that he had claimed to be, like, the murderer of. But then later in his life, they started flying him places and stuff. And that was after, like, he went on death row because they were trying to just solve as many cases as they could. But when the task force, like, first started, they were having, like, tons of people, like, tons of different law enforcement officers from all over the country would travel to, like, visit Lucas and basically ask him about these cold cases. And
what year are we in right now?
I don't know. I didn't really write down years.
Oh, okay.
I probably should have done that, but I didn't.
That's okay. You know what?
I probably should have written down some years. I think it's like in the 80s, like 70s and
80s, because I'm
right
80s. Because I was looking at the arrest and confession to murders of Powell and Rich in 1982.
Okay, so yeah, we're in the 80s right now. But so he had claimed to kill over 100 women, and He confessed to basically driving around looking for women to kill.
That's exactly what they did.
And the task force went on for a really long time. And the crazy thing is Lucas was basically given like free range in the Georgetown jail, which is where the task force was like stationed at, was at the Georgetown jail.
He was walking down the hallway, no cuffs.
And that's what Jordan was talking about earlier when he was saying like...
I was ranting.
When you were ranting. And he was talking about how Henry was confessing to all these crimes because he was treated so well. So basically what happened was the investigative officers that were in charge of this task force and people coming in from other states that thought he was responsible for crimes, they would basically like present him with a crime and be like, were you here? Did you commit this? And I don't think all the officers who were traveling there would show him crime scene photos, but basically like Botwell.
Oh yeah, they brought in a book.
Yep, Botwell and
Prince
would basically present Henry with like basically photos of the crime scene, information about the crime and the crime scene. So it was almost like he was being like prepped for an interview. And I don't think that they originally did it intentionally trying to like lead him into confessing to these. But I think they originally thought it was going to like trigger his memory. But
that's the thing, triggering his memory makes him put things in places where he doesn't have a memory.
Yeah. That's true, because his mind is so fucked up. So he could even potentially be convincing himself, like, oh, maybe I was here and I did do this. It's like, okay,
memory gap. Let's insert that in there and continue, and that's going to be there.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're rebuilding his mentality.
Yeah.
And he doesn't forget these things because he can see a picture and be like, oh, this girl.
Yeah, because he had actually a really good memory.
Yeah.
And so...
Believe it or not.
And, like, when you're kind of delusional and, like, psychotic...
And that
you can kind of like almost convince yourself of things that aren't true.
You, me, and we.
And even when someone is like, this happens a lot in interrogations too, where they'll like ask you a question over and over and over again until you maybe start to believe like, was I there? Like, was I a part of this? Like, and I just don't remember.
I was there.
So I wouldn't even be surprised if that kind of happened because they're trying to get it out of him, and they probably think they're doing a good thing, and they're like, look at this photo. Are you sure you weren't there?
So it's borderline manipulation. It's like all this stuff, but he's a willing participant in saying I did it, and that's what they would like, because the chief of police was trying to get some of these on his career. He was trying to close them, so the community, because every 4 years that police chief had to do his shit to be elected,
be voted.
Police chief.
Yeah.
So he had to get this stuff taken care of. So it's all like,
and it makes them look better, and you know, and they probably felt like, oh, we're doing such a good thing for like society and the communities. We're solving, and for these families, like we're solving all these cases, making these people feel better that like we found the murderer of, you know, their loved one.
And that's that was the trigger for me.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I can understand where this guy is coming from.
Yeah.
Broken home, doing this really weird shit, psychologically fucked up, mentally fucked up from both doing this stuff and being beaten.
Yeah.
And that takes a toll. But then again, I'm thinking like, okay, you know, the point of the matter is all of these people, regardless of who they worked for or if they were like, you know, prostitutes or working at the grocery store, they're people. And they had bad shit happen to them by people who didn't care and just needed money to go from point A to point B and do what they wanted to do based off of what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is reaching out to the families and finding out what happened to these loved ones.
Yeah.
And this cop, I believe, had a good side, but also was like, oh, this Henry guy.
Yeah, like, he'll confess to anything.
He's going to say he did this and he did this and how he did it and blah, blah, blah. So we're going to give him the reports, and he's going to read the reports in his cell and blah, 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 blah. So, like, he's a puppet.
Yeah, basically what Henry started doing is, I don't even know if we said this yet, but he basically started confessing to any crime.
Anything.
That was presented. Not crime, but murder. Anything. Murder that was presented to him, he started to confess to it.
Shit, if they told him he stole a car, he would have.
And so people were like, oh my god, this is like the biggest serial killer that we've ever found, like in the country, probably in the world. And because he just started confessing to pretty much every crime that he was presented with, and then these officers would close the case because he would give details that only the killer would know or law enforcement would know. And unfortunately, he probably wasn't the killer in most, if not all, of these cases that he confessed to, because he was being shown information that he shouldn't have been.
But that chick, I've kind of got absent-minded with Frida.
Yeah, he probably killed her and Kate Rich and his mom, obviously.
When Lucas befriended Toole, and they were in Jacksonville, Florida, he obviously became close to Becky, but she also had a mild intellectual impairment, and she had escaped from a juvenile detention center herself.
Yeah.
So they were like you know how Misery Loves Company?
Yeah.
They were a trifecta.
Yeah, the three of them.
Trifecta.
Yeah.
You're funny. That's funny. But, oh god. Putting the three of them together is not a good idea.
Yeah, definitely not. Especially because one of them wound up dead.
In the end, all three of them.
I know. So with this whole task force and everything, so Henry just keeps admitting to these or confessing to these murders
every day,
and pretty much every day. And it got to the point where the office was being called up and they were like, hey, do you have anything for June 10th? What about June 14th? Do you have anything on this day? So it got to the point where one day he was in Michigan, the next day he drove all the way to Florida, and then the next day he was in California, and then the next day he was here. And it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense that he would be in all these different places. One day to the next day to the next day.
The places take time to get to.
Yeah.
It takes time to do what you're going to be doing.
You need to sleep.
You need to sleep. You need to eat.
Yeah.
You need to, get the money for fuel.
Yeah.
You need to do all this stuff. And by the looks of it, these two guys, they look, in some pictures, they look like, I am so not dealing with these guys with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
And in other pictures, you're like, well, Henry doesn't look
terrible.
Too much of a fucked up guy.
Yeah.
I mean, but Toole always looked weird.
So were a lot of these crimes, did they say it was Henry and Toole or just Henry?
I think a lot of the crimes were
it was said to be both of them.
Yeah, because they were each other's
drive
accomplice.
Around together.
Yeah, that's the thing. They would drive from here to there, switch it up.
According to the confessions.
Correct.
But yeah, so basically, you were talking about this earlier. So he was confessing to all of these crimes and he just kept going along with it. You're like, why would anybody do this? And the reason he was doing it is because he was treated so well while he was confessing to these crimes. He was given, like Jordan was saying, as many cigarettes as he wanted, coffee. They were treating him like a friend. They were being nice to him.
Just trying to get information out. And
to get information out of him.
I think he was intelligent enough to be like, hey, you know what, this lifestyle ain't so bad.
Yeah, especially just compared to sitting in a jail cell all day. And when he was in the Georgetown jail where they held...
meals, they would ask him what he wanted for lunch.
Yeah, they would give him what he wanted for lunch. Basically, when he was at the task force, which he went to pretty much every single day, he was treated like a free person. He wasn't in handcuffs. He was able to walk around. He was able to do pretty much whatever he wanted besides leave the building.
I wonder what, if he was really, nowadays, nowadays.
Yeah.
If this stuff happened now, I wonder how much of it would be true, and how much of it he actually did, how much they did, the three of them, the two of them, just one of them. I wonder how much, we'd be able to get from it. How much DNA would we be able to get from it? 'Cause
they're solving, so... they're solving a bunch of the cases that he confessed to now through DNA. Like, a bunch of the cases that he confessed to and were closed cases are now being reopened and solved through modern DNA evidence.
Yeah.
I think it was like 28 cases or something.
Which is much quicker. But think about it, 28 murder cases.
That he confessed to and were closed.
28. And at one point he was like, he said, like, oh, there were 600.
Yeah, he at one point claimed he had murdered 600 people. So during this task force, this is when the investigative journalist Hugh Ainsworth comes into the picture. And this is kind of where it all starts to go downhill. So a journalist, he was an investigative journalist, and he had actually spent the past 4 years interviewing Ted Bundy and wrote this book on him. And he was asked if he could interview Lucas and film him. And Botwell said, yeah, sure, and gave him open access to Lucas because he trusted Ainsworth as a journalist. And so Ainsworth went down there, and he spent a lot of time at the Lucas task force.
Every day.
Pretty much like every day. And he would, interview Lucas, and eventually he started to feel like things weren't...
so exhausting.
He eventually started to feel like things weren't adding up. Because Ainsworth had hired these 2 Japanese guys to help him with the documentary.
Oh, yeah.
And Lucas was saying, like, oh, yeah, I've been to your country.
They gave him a gift.
They gave him a gift. Yeah,
Remember,
they gave him a gift.
What the shit was that gift?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
But they gave him a present.
Yeah.
Probably to try to be on his good side while
and he recording. It was funny, well, not funny, but you know what I mean. When they were interviewing him, he said that he had people that he had killed in Japan, and they're like,
they
really?
were like, oh.
And they asked him how he got there, and he said by car.
Yeah, he said he drove there.
Then everybody's question marks got popped up.
Except for the police for some reason.
Yeah, police didn't really.
But Ainsworth was like, that's weird. So, and he kind of felt like a lot of what Lucas was saying just didn't make sense. It didn't add up.
What are you talking about, bro?
So, he's an investigative journalist. He started to investigate. And he basically found evidence that Lucas wasn't in the same states as he had claimed. Basically, he was like in another state on the same days that he had confessed to murders.
It's so weird, though.
So it's like, and there was evidence of it. There were like checks he had cashed, work, like time cards and stuff that he himself had signed off on. And then when it was brought to like the Rangers and the task force, Lucas would say like, oh, I paid someone off to like write me in for the day or say I was there. It's like, okay. But so after this, so basically Ainsworth was investigating it, these inconsistencies, and after he brought them forth to like the task force, they no longer allowed him to like keep interviewing Lucas.
What's up with that?
Because they didn't trust him anymore. Because they were like, oh, you're trying to disprove like these cases that we've solved and that we've closed. And then Ainsworth released a like an article about all of this to like the Dallas Herald or something like that.
I think I remember that.
So then the next person that kind of comes into the picture is Vic Faisal, or Faisal. I think it's Vic Faisal, but he was a former district attorney in Texas for McLennan County, and the episodes that involved him I found the most interesting because I felt like it was big government conspiracy, and I like that kind of stuff. But so he was contacted by the Rangers claiming that they had several murders in his county that they believed had been committed by Lucas, and he was like excited. He's a brand new district attorney. He's like, this is gonna make me look really good. So he doesn't want to go against this. He's like, okay, like bring the cases to me and I'll look at them.
And he looked at them.
So yeah, while looking at these cases, Vic felt like Lucas's confessions were false, and he was like, this just doesn't make sense and it doesn't seem truthful to me. So he asked a coworker of his, Truman Simon, to look into Lucas's whereabouts on the days of the murders in his county, and Simmons discovered that it wouldn't have been it was like impossible for Lucas to have committed these murders that he was claiming to have done in the McLennan County. And there were also cases that had been like solved and closed with Lucas as a murderer, that these people were like, well, we have evidence here that's saying he was incarcerated during this murder, so how would he have killed this person if he was incarcerated in a different state at the time of this murder? Which is so crazy that they would close a case like that. Oh my god. So then the next time Simmons tried to look up Lucas, basically they had this like computer database, and when he tried to like look up Lucas again the next time he went in, his access was denied, and so was Vic's. So someone was on to them, and the fact that they were looking into this. Yeah. And then Ainsworth,
they were like,
oh shit. So Ainsworth, the journalist, met with Vic and showed him an article that he was going to be publishing that would prove that Lucas had been confessing to crimes he did not commit, and that the Rangers were feeding him information about these cases.
They eventually got to the point where it was like 213 cases that were just like cleared. Yeah. Because Lucas was talking about all these.
I did that.
213, and it was just not.
And it's just so crazy. He would be given this information by the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, but they also got irritated with him, and they denied him some stuff. He in '83, when he was transferred to Williamson County, he reported that he was treated roughly by inmates and attempted suicide. Do you know that?
No.
He attempted suicide?
No.
He attempted suicide twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah. With his wrists once and another way again. But they got angry kind of with him because of the BS that was kind of going on, and he claimed that police stripped him naked, denied him cigarettes and bedding, held him in a cold cell, tortured his genitalia, and did not allow him to contact an attorney. In interviews with law enforcement personnel, Lucas confessed to numerous additional unsolved killings. It was thought that there was a positive collaboration with Lucas's confessions in 28 unsolved murders. And so Lucas,
Like they basically like beat him into confessing to some stuff?
I guess they just denied him things in order to get somewhere. Where that
and this wasn't the same people as the task force. This was the guards in the jail he was at. So not at the Georgetown jail, but like the jail he was, like where his jail cell was. Like when he would leave the task force, he would go back to jail. And so this happened there.
They denied him that stuff not the whole like stripping and all that crap, but they denied him
maybe like cigarettes and stuff.
The two things that he liked the most.
They would kind of like, I feel like they would emotionally blackmail him and manipulate him to get him to confess to some of these cases.
If he wanted his jail freedom, if he wanted that back, and he wanted to have everything that he wanted and all the stuff, like, you know.
Because he kind of went back and forth a couple times saying, like, I didn't do these, and then, like, no, I did do it. I didn't. Yeah. So it was definitely like he was being coerced.
They needed someone. And regardless of if the need of someone was consistent or inconsistent with details and whereabouts, which is really fucking strange, because he knew about all that stuff. It's almost as if they gave him, okay, here, you study this thing.
Well, I think that's what they...
And we're going to question you.
I think that's what they did.
I was thinking that too.
And like, he says that happened.
In a way, it's impressive that he could go into a room and
like
just
memorize all of that.
Give it out.
Yeah.
So maybe he's not as unintelligent as
I think he had a really good memory, and I think he was obviously intelligent enough to know, like, if I go along with this, that
Tool not so much.
But Tool wasn't also treated like Lucas was. But Lucas, knew well enough that if he went along with it, I think he was also told basically if he went along with it, because he says at some point that he was told that he won't get the death penalty and they'll keep him off death row if they keep cooperating with him, because they can keep the task force going. And the task force only works if he's alive and working with them.
You are correct.
Yeah. So that investigative journalist, meets up with Vic, and he shows him the article that he's going to be publishing, and that would prove Lucas was lying and that the Rangers were feeding him information. And Vic decided to impanel a grand jury to investigate the Lucas confessions and the Lucas task force. And this was a big no-no. So during this grand jury trial, because he was basically going after another branch of government.
I have to get my other one.
And so during this grand jury trial, Lucas said that he didn't do any of the crimes that he had confessed to.
It was all bullshit.
And he said that he was fed information by the Rangers and thought that he was basically doing the right thing by closing these cases. But
he didn't really know any better.
No, and he was thinking well...
They had a dude.
I'll be their guy, I'll close these cases, they're asking me to do this, and this will basically give closure to a lot of families.
Absolutely. And
then he realized it was the wrong thing to do, because now all these killers are just wandering about free, and he's the type of guy that could be manipulated into something. So when he was with the Georgetown police, they convinced him that he was guilty of all this stuff, and then when he's pulled away from them, because during this grand jury trial he's moved away from the Georgetown jail, and he's moved to Waco, Texas, and he's kind of in with Vic's people instead. And so they're questioning him about this, and they're like, did you actually do this? And he's like, no, I didn't. He was like, they told me that if I confess to all these, that they'll keep me off death row. But I didn't actually do them. So...
This thing says...
it's crazy.
The bulk of the Lucas report was devoted to a detailed timeline of Lucas's claimed murders.
Yeah.
The report compared Lucas's claims to reliable, verifiable resources for his whereabouts. The results often contradicted his confessions.
Yeah.
And thus... casted doubt upon most of the crimes in which he was implicated.
Yeah.
Attorney General Jim Maddox wrote that, quote, when Lucas was confessing to hundreds of murders, those with custody of Lucas did nothing to bring an end to this hoax, unquote. And, quote, we have found information that would lead us to believe that some officials cleared cases just to get them off the books, unquote.
Yeah. So they basically discovered this, and
forgive me for reading verbatim.
And then Fazell was claiming that he believed that the Rangers had acted inappropriately, and that he was going to be looking into their actions, and he was getting a lot of shit for this. And so he met with the Colonel Jim Adams, who is the head of the Dallas or DPS, which I think is Dallas Police, whatever. I don't know.
That's why that guy was had such a weird relationship with him. If you see him every day and you're talking to him every day and blah blah blah, you develop a relationship like anybody else would.
Yeah.
And then
Botwell
he's
and
just
Henry.
he's just like, oh, okay, we got a guy. He looks, he's confessed to this, so why don't we just continue going with it? So people.
And I think that Botwell actually, at least originally, thought that Henry was guilty.
Yeah.
I think he thought he was guilty of a lot of these crimes, and I think he kind of convinced himself that he was his person.
Until he told him he drove to Japan.
But he didn't even stop after that. He was still just well, sometimes Henry is a liar, but with the stuff that he's giving us exact information on, we have to believe him. But most of this exact information, he was fed
because they had nothing else.
Police.
What a trip.
Vic met with the Colonel Jim Adams, who was the head of the DPS, and he was also the head of the Rangers, and he also happened to be the former head of the FBI. And Vic said he would drop the grand jury if Adams would reopen and examine the Lucas cases. He basically was like, I'll drop this investigation. I won't pursue it any further. He was like, just do what's right and actually have these cases looked into instead of just closing them because Lucas confessed to it. So Adams said no and then threatened Vic that he was going to be looking into him. And so that's where basically this giant government conspiracy happens. So Channel 8 News started to air a series of videos that were looking into the supposed misconduct of Vic, claiming that he had basically taken bribes to throw cases, and that...
Well, he had to meet his, like, quota.
Yeah, basically just, like, all this, like, slander about him.
And people got pissed.
And people got really pissed because they were like, oh, this guy's crooked and all this stuff. So after these videos came out, the grand jury decided to stop investigating the Lucas task force, and Henry Lee was transferred back to Georgetown, and the task force continued. And all this crazy shit basically started to happen to Faisal. I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm gonna say his last name. So Vic. Basically, all this crazy shit started to happen to Vic and his wife. Yeah, and they found wiretaps on their house. They had seen people following them, and then they also found their dog dead. And when they brought it to a vet, their dog had been poisoned, which is so sad. And then in September of '86, Vic got arrested by FBI agents for accepting bribes, extortion, and mail fraud. And basically...
So he, like, fucked everything up.
Yeah. And so basically and this is all because he was looking into the Lucas task force, and he wasn't backing down. He was like, you guys are lying to these families, and the real murderers are out there not being like caught.
And it's not like Lucas is like, oh yeah, this is a problem.
Yeah, Lucas is just like, I'm just gonna go with whoever is telling me what to do and whoever is giving me the best treatment.
Can I have another carton? And I'll say whatever you want.
Exactly. And Vic, so with these charges, Vic was facing 80 years in prison if he was found guilty. And so a whole big trial happened, and several attorneys testified against Vic, claiming to have bribed him to win cases, and Vic claims that they were lying and coerced into testifying against him. Basically, they were like pressured by FBI and other people, and several lawyers who were threatened basically by like the FBI, like, you need to test against Vic and say he did these things. They're in the documentary. I don't know if they were at the trial or anything, but they're in the documentary, and they're like, I was threatened to testify against him, and I didn't because he didn't do anything wrong. They were like, he never bribed me, he never did anything wrong, he was a good stand-up district attorney. And Vic was found not guilty, and he was actually able to continue his job as district attorney, but he wound up resigning because he was just so turned off from basically being a political servant. He was just like, I'm over it. And he was like on his way to potentially becoming like governor, or I don't know, like a really good, like, he wanted a career in politics, and he was really well liked, and he was supposed to be a really good district attorney. And it's really sad that this guy's life was basically like, I mean, I don't know if he probably continued to be just like a private lawyer after that.
Probably.
But it's horrible that this guy's life was like ruined after this. But he's in their documentary a lot, and he is super smart, and what he has to say is really interesting.
It is.
And I don't know, this kind of shows to me this whole, like, them coming after this guy so hard that they have something to hide. Yeah. You know, I don't, it just doesn't make any sense.
No, but who knows? And here's the thing, how many cases were actually cleared and proven via DNA, and how many are still, like, out there, and how many
There's so many that are still just out there and closed.
How many people are out there like, yep, I did that, but I'm good.
Well, there's a lot of people who are in jail who have confessed, like murderers who have confessed to other crimes because they want the notoriety and fame, and it's proven that they didn't do it. And It's like, why don't you think this guy would be doing the same? Most people who claim to have murdered hundreds of people are lying because they want
Yeah.
he wanted the fame, the attention.
Yeah.
He had this
Mhm.
grandiose thing,
Mhm.
and like he was crazy.
Yeah. He had some major issues. I mean, it it all literally comes down to the beginnings of your upbringing. It's like all the shit that happened
Yeah, I had a
to
really
this
fucked
guy.
up upbringing.
Yeah, and he doesn't like he's just doing things to
Yeah, he
to
doesn't
get
really
by.
like he knows better, but not really.
Yeah.
Because he was just not brought up in
Mm-mm.
a good way at all.
No, I mean when you're brought up with alcoholism and when you're brought up with violence and
Yeah.
you're brought up with, sexual situations you should not be involved in, and being like that young and being dressed up a certain way and being pimped out, and for Tool, like having his literally everybody and their grandmother messing with you,
Yeah.
something is bound to go wrong,
happen.
and you're interested in these other things that are just frowned upon by society. And
And then it's like you said, he was just basically going along with whatever he needed to get by.
Yeah.
So it's like he's convicted of this murder, and then he's like, well, what about all these other people I murder? And like
They're like,
spark
"What?
interest.
you
then
murdered
they're like,
others?
Exactly. And then
3,000?
and then he basically just kept going with it
Yeah.
because that's what they wanted. And then he claims that they said to him, if you keep confessing to these, like, we can keep you alive.
His credibility was damaged
Horrible.
by his lack of precision.
Yeah, so a lot of it's just so crazy.
He initially admitted to 60.
And then it's
60.
100.
He raised his number to 100. When the police accepted that number from him, thinking that he did do this, the most amount he said was 3,000, which led them to not take him seriously anymore. So then they're like, wait, 3,000? It started from 6. Like, how many people did he really?
But some people, but the task force still took him seriously.
Absolutely, they had.
That's the thing, is a lot of people
have
weren't
to.
taking him seriously, but this task force, yeah, at that point they literally had to, because then they would have had to basically admit to all these other cases potentially not actually being solved. So they just had to,
So
it got to a point where they probably just had to literally keep
3,000,
going with it.
Easy there, big guy. Easy there. Okay, you admitted to 60. That, that's more of like, we can believe it. And then 100, okay, well, we're still like, on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
Okay, dude, we understand, what you did. But I think it's like time relevant because it's back then. They didn't have what we have now. They have stories. They have people. They have incidents.
I also think it was a big pride thing where it was just like, we're already so deep into this that we kind of can't go back now.
No, because they've done so much. It would just be throwing things out the window.
Yeah.
And, as precise as he was with certain things, he was not precise.
He made up a bunch of
he
shit
did.
with other
And he's
cases
just filling
too.
in the blanks, and
Yeah.
they have somebody that people believe that would do this stuff.
Yeah.
Tool didn't do this goose chase.
Yeah.
He
Well,
was just like,
he eventually like,
because even though the documentary is specifically about Lucas,
yeah.
there's a big tie-in with Tool. It's like, they met at the soup kitchen and they did all that, like they developed a friendship and they ran out of jail and they were like,
I feel like Tool and him together was basically, I was gonna say basically the start of things, but Henry had already killed his mom.
Jekyll and Hyde, but they were both.
Yeah, they fed off of each other.
Which is
so
fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's like the whole thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. Our sympathies go out to all of the families, the friends, all of the people that this affected negatively.
Yeah.
But
I honestly, I think,
fascinating.
at least in my opinion, Like, I don't know how you feel, but I honestly just don't think Tool and Henry did as much as stuff as they claim. I don't even know if they did really, like, I feel like they had their own things.
It's a big number.
I think they had their own things separately, and maybe they, like, burglarized places and, like, robbed some places, but I don't know if they actually murdered anyone together.
I think they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they teamed up, and it was easier to do that stuff with two people than one.
That makes sense.
I mean, I don't know. I just think that, you know, you have Lucas here and Tool here. They're both screwed up.
Yeah.
They're out driving around looking for fun.
Yeah.
That fun is taken to extremes.
Yeah, I
do think that I don't think they did nearly that much.
Yeah.
Remember the map and all the pins.
There's like a pinpoint in like every single place.
That's what they drove around looking for fun.
Yeah.
They would burglarize places.
I guess it is possible
beer
that they
in the back
could have,
seat, get drunk, like, you know, do all this stuff. They're from bad backgrounds.
Yeah.
I think they did a lot of bad things.
Yeah. I just don't even know if they actually, like, traveled as much as they said they did, because a lot of the times when Henry was saying he was traveling in all these different places, there's other, like, records and stuff claiming that he wasn't, and that he wasn't as much of, like, a vagrant as he claimed to be.
That's
and
why
that
I
he
wanted
had actually
to
settled down in a lot of, like, he was in Jacksonville for like a while, and then he was in Texas for a while.
I wanted to find
So I don't know if he
PDF.
actually really did travel as much as he claimed to have moved around. And then Tool, there was like one point in the documentary where Henry is talking about how then Tool like saw him getting all this attention and stuff, and he basically like all this fame for all these murders, and he basically went to and visited Henry and like wanted to be in on the fame, and basically had Henry also, and was like, I was with you with a lot of those murders, wasn't I? And then Henry was like, well, if you want to confess to it, then yeah.
Yeah, so they kind
so I don't know.
I don't, that's the thing. Like, back then, police work was completely different from the way it is now.
It's so hard, too, to find the correct information on this case, because
it really is.
Henry's saying one thing, Tool's saying another, the Rangers are saying another, and then there's also, like, there is stuff proving him wrong on a lot of his cases, but I think there's still a lot of cases that haven't been investigated yet. But, I don't know, there's so many cases where it's been DNA proven, or, like, other evidence, like work timesheets and stuff that proved he wasn't the murderer. So I don't know, I have a hard time believing most of it.
Yeah. In 1981, after his mom's death, Tool reportedly claimed 9 more victims in 6 states between January of 1982 and February of 1983.
Yeah.
He was incarcerated. Once he was incarcerated, he backed up Lucas's game of confessions with police officers, admitting to helping Lucas in another 108 homicides.
Damn.
He was a practicing cannibal, and he provided gruesome details of the crimes, but in the end it remains unclear how many killings he and Lucas actually committed.
Yeah.
So, and that the whole fire thing.
Yeah.
He was actually, in 1984, convicted of setting a fire that killed 64-year-old George Sonnenberg. He was sentenced to death for that crime.
Damn.
He was indicted 1 month later?
Indicted.
Is that indicted? That's not indicted, though.
Yeah, that's indicted.
Maybe there's a typo.
No, that's how you spell indicted.
Whoops. That's how you spell indicted? That's weird. Moving on.
Yeah, it is weird, but that is how you spell indicted.
Alright, fine. Indicted with a C. 1 month later for the murder of 19-year-old Etta Johnson. Do you remember that?
No.
Because he apparently murdered a 19-year-old girl. And in 1991, he pleaded guilty to 4 more slayings in Florida. So he was known for, like, doing bad shit.
Yeah. But I wonder if it was almost a thing where it was like,
I think they
where he kind of fed off of Henry confessing to all this stuff, so he was like, I'm gonna confess to this stuff too. I don't know. It's like,
I think he did stuff though.
Yeah, I didn't really look into Tool that much because I mostly focused on Henry. Yeah, we should do one on him specifically because at least with Henry, most of these crimes that he confessed to, other than Becky and Kate and his mom, there's literally zero evidence connecting him to it. And there's mostly, like, all of these things that he confessed to, like, during the Lucas Task Force. Almost all of the crimes that he confessed to have been proven through DNA or other means that he literally can't be connected to it. So that's why I have a hard time believing, like, him and Tool did all this stuff together, because it's, like, all this other stuff that he claimed to have done, he's literally proven to be nowhere even, like, near it.
Oh, you know the dude
but maybe
for
Tool
America's
is,
Most
like,
Wanted?
Legit.
Do you remember America's Most Wanted?
Yeah.
This says, in December of 2008, police announced definitively that serial killer Otis Toole was responsible for the 1981 murder of John Walsh's son, the host. The announcement brought to a close a case that was troubled the Walsh family for more than 2 decades, and their search was responsible for launching the popular television show America's Most Wanted about the nation's most notorious criminals, and inspired changes in how authorities search for missing children. The kid that Toole killed was John Walsh's son, the host's.
Oh.
The host's son. And Toole confessed twice to killing the child, but later denied his testimony. He claimed responsibility for hundreds of murders, but police determined most of the confessions were bullshit. They say lies here, I just wanted to throw in bullshit. While police were not specific about the evidence that linked Toole to the Walsh killing, they said an extensive review of the case file pointed only to Toole. So yeah, that...
And I believe that both of them have murdered people. It's just obviously they didn't murder as many people as they said, and I don't really know how much they did together.
I agree.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I think they did stuff on their own, and I think when they were together, they probably didn't do some good stuff. I just don't believe they went on this, like, road trip killing spree, you know?
The road trip killing spree, I think they did a little bit of.
Okay.
The stuff that they individually did separately, I think they did.
I think there's more evidence proving that than there is of them doing stuff together. But I mean, if they did stuff separately and then, like you said, them getting together,
it's a snapshot.
It's definitely a good. It's definitely a good, like, not a good pairing, but it's definitely it would definitely make sense for these two people that are, like, already horrible people to be even worse together.
And this, I didn't mention to Kelly or anything like that, but there was something, there is something called the Milgram psychological experiment.
Ooh, what's that?
Once people were past a certain point of electrocutions, they were the ones who wanted to keep going till the end.
Oh, the electroshock therapy stuff?
An example of what happens sometimes when we realize what we might be doing something wrong, or what we when we make a mistake, we double down because it's really hard to pull back. This was one of those things. If it wasn't on such a large scale and there weren't so many officers involved, then it might not have been able to happen. So I guess I was looking up the Milgram psychological experiment, but I didn't really have that much time to read it. But that's something we could investigate.
Yeah, for a different episode for sure. Do you think he was, like, a part of it?
Yeah, I think he was probably on, when the experiment was going on and when he was involved in the mental place that he was in, I think they did include him in their experiments with everything that he was, like, confessing to.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that a lot of stuff happened with these guys.
I know.
And it's all, like, bad negatives. I mean, I think they both, killed animals to begin with.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure that Lucas actually did, sexual things with them. I'm sure that Toole did.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas talks about it. He claims
talks
to
a lot
have.
about it.
I wouldn't be
But
surprised.
Tool is like I said, Tool's the kind of guy to do it.
Yeah.
Lucas is the kind of guy to say,
talk about it.
To talk about doing it and maybe do it.
Yeah.
But they both have very troubled pasts. They both, like, they
It would be interesting if someone would do, like, a documentary on, like, their time together. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just, like, a separate documentary on Tool and then a separate one on...
They were like the Bonnie and Clyde.
Lucas. Yeah, it would be interesting to have a documentary just on the two of them and have someone really investigate, like, what's true, what their timelines are together, you know?
I was trying to find a PDF of the timeline that the police formed together of where Lucas was.
Yeah.
Not so much specific dates, but years.
Yeah.
Because there are years that go by. Like, a lot can happen in a year.
Yeah.
And back then, you can get away with a lot of shit that's not like a robbery. I mean, driving down the road, you see somebody who's hitchhiking, you pick them up.
Yeah.
You know, you talk to them about this, that, or they don't want to. A fight happens, and, you know, apparently to do things like they did, you either need, like, you know, a bad temper. You're not getting what you want.
Yeah.
So, a lot of that stuff is just off of what you know and what you've been through.
Yeah.
And it's just continuing the cycle.
Exactly.
Who cares? Tool's in prison. I'm not. I'm living with so-and-so, and, like, shit happens. I mean, if you guys want to learn more about this stuff, there's always YouTube and other sources of information, which Kelly and I go to find out these things.
Definitely watch the documentary.
And believe me, a lot of the stuff is not on the first page of searching.
The documentary has a lot of good information, though.
It does.
So
Orange socks.
Yeah, so we're gonna pretty much start. No, not yet. We're pretty much gonna start to wrap it up and get towards the end of.
We may compile this
Henry
into
Lucas.
a part 1, part 2.
Maybe, yeah.
Or not.
Maybe. I don't know where I honestly don't know where we would cut it off and restart.
I don't really know.
Because we have rambled like this whole episode.
Yeah.
So maybe there'll be a part 1, part 2, maybe it'll just be super long.
Well, I mean, it comes down to us, like, you know, you talk about a topic and then it's like, you know, you're human.
Yeah.
So we gotta talk about it.
Yeah. So orange socks. So this was basically the crime that kind of finished up the whole thing.
Orange socks.
So this was Henry took the fall for another murder, and it was of an unidentified woman dubbed Orange Socks because that was the only thing that was found on her when she had died. And this was a big case because of the fact that he was being charged the death penalty for this murder. And so if he confessed to it and if he was convicted, he was going to be put on death row. So he originally decided that he wanted to confess to this because he wanted to commit legal suicide because he didn't want to commit suicide himself because he had become really religious while in jail. And
what was that lady?
Like Clemmy or something.
Yeah.
There was this like nun basically, or I don't know about a nun, but they called her like a sister, which I think is like a nun. But there was this woman named Clemmy who became super close with him and basically taught him and showed him the ways of God. And so he had become super religious and he wanted to be in heaven with his beloved Becky. And if you commit suicide, you don't go to heaven. So he figured this is his way of basically committing legal suicide or being like killed by not his own hands that could send him to heaven. So he decided to confess to this crime, and basically during his trial it became clear to him that his lawyers that he wasn't responsible for this murder because there was no way, once again, for him to be in this vicinity of the murder because he was in a different state at the time of the death. And he eventually told his lawyers that he didn't commit the crime, and they convinced him to testify saying that he wasn't responsible for it, and to say that he wasn't guilty because he said he wasn't. And they were like, this is really, you know, like, we don't want this guy going up against the death penalty for a crime he didn't commit.
It's true, because it's pretty serious.
Yeah. And so the night before his trial, he decided that he was going to, or the night before, like, the last day of his trial or something, he decided he was going to testify saying he wasn't guilty. And then the next day, he changed his mind and didn't, like, testify.
Mm-hmm.
And so his lawyers basically think, like, that someone convinced him otherwise, and they kind of insinuate
Shocking.
Yeah, they kind of insinuate that Botwell probably convinced him to confess to it. And this all kind of relates back to him and Botwell's, like, pretty close relationship, and I think Botwell kind of emotionally manipulated him into taking on the blame for a lot of crimes because Botwell treated him really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Lucas also kind of looked up to him almost as, like, a dad. So
I would
yeah.
think that, yeah. I mean, he's in charge.
Yep. And he's, like, treating him really well. He gets him milkshakes. He gets him his cigarettes. It was like, yeah, it was like strawberry milkshake for every case that he closed. He would get him a strawberry milkshake. Yep. So after he was found guilty and put on death row, the task force basically wanted to solve as many of the crimes as they could. And this is where what you were talking about comes in, where they basically started to fly him all around the country. And he was not treated like a celebrity, but I think he kind of, like, felt like a celebrity because he's, like, in charge. He's leading these people to these crime scenes. They're asking him questions. He's getting, everywhere he's going, there's reporters. He's getting a lot of attention.
Big time.
And,
like, everybody wants to interview. Everybody wants to talk to him.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to
Everybody
know
wants
up.
him to confess to, like, their crimes, close, like, their cases. And he's
boy.
like, all right, let's do it. So he literally confessed to, like, so many crimes. And it just wouldn't have been possible for him to commit, like, any of these. It's just so crazy. But so basically what happened, eventually he was taken off of death row because George Bush Jr., who was the governor of Texas at the time, believed there was not enough evidence to convict him of the murder of the Orange Sox woman.
And he took him off death row.
So he took him off of death row, and basically, and then last, like, few years of his life in prison, he started to talk about how he wasn't responsible for most, if not all, of the murders he had confessed to, and felt that he finally needed to come clean, as there were now all these murderers that were roaming free. And basically, I think it was pretty much after he was taken off death row and the task force had, like, ended at that point, until his death, he started to, like, claim his innocence for not everything, but I think for most of it.
Yeah.
I think he still claimed to have killed Becky and Kate, but the rest of the ones that he had confessed to during the task force, he had started to deny.
Yeah.
And then he would later die of, I think, a heart attack, but
I thought it was natural. I guess heart attack.
It was like natural causes, but it was like heart failure, basically,
and
at the age of 64.
Tool passed away from liver failure.
Oh, did he?
Yep. Yep.
And that pretty much, like, wraps it up, but so basically it's believed, like, now that Henry is really only officially responsible for 3 murders. His mother, Kate, Rich, and Becky. Those are the only murders that have actually been somewhat proven that he is guilty for. And yeah, Ainsworth, Faisal, and several families of murdered victims all found evidence of Lucas being in different places that contradict his confessions. And basically, if you watch a documentary, the last episode kind of focuses on different families of victims he had claimed to have murdered that now realize he wasn't the murderer, and they're trying to get their cases reopened, and the police just aren't cooperating with them. They're just not
doing it, which is...
Because they don't want to have to reopen a case. It's time, resources, it makes them look bad.
It does.
So
them money.
These families are basically having to hire their own private investigators and do their own research and have
that one woman
actual physical evidence that proves that
they do.
he wasn't guilty. And
didn't
so
they that one guy, they were interviewing that one guy and they did a swab in the interrogation room.
They show the murder of one of his victims. They show footage of him being interrogated by the police, and they swab his cheek for DNA.
And at first he was like, nope.
Yeah.
He was like, nope, didn't do it. Then it got more serious with, this is what we know.
And then he confesses. But this was like, he confessed like last year. And it's just crazy because there's so many of these cases where the actual killer is still loose. But a lot of these cases, I think it was like 28 of the cases have now been solved through DNA evidence. But it's just insane because all the other murders that he's confessed to that have, case closed, it's most likely someone else. But yeah, so basically him and Toole would just both, at least in my opinion, would just make up these like grandiose lies and would like feed off of each other. And
it's so not only what they did or what they said they did or what actually transpired, but it's so crazy to think of like, okay, I don't have a great upbringing, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, all this bad shit happens, then you find a friend that you can like start doing stuff together with,
and it's had a similar background,
so you become friends and all this stuff happens and one gets arrested and you're traveling from here to here and you're it's just a crazy lifestyle. But like given that they don't have full-time like jobs or houses or wives, or they're just like
wanderers,
kind of freedom to kind of do what they want. And it's just unfortunate that they hurt other people, including themselves.
Whether I was gonna say hurting other people, whether they actually committed all of these murders or not, because even if a lot of these cases were proven that it wasn't them, they're now causing all this like emotional harm on these families of the victims, because
you can't keep bringing it up and going away.
Exactly. It's like there's the pain of thinking that like, oh my gosh, my sister, my mother, my wife, whoever, like their murder is finally solved, like finally, and then for all of it to just be brought up again, like, and oh my god, this person just claimed they did this and they didn't. Lied. Their murder is still out there, and it just brings up all those like feelings again.
Absolutely.
And it's just horrible to put those people through that.
That one woman that started the investigation herself, she went back to the house.
Yeah.
That she
like
was
the
like,
sister of one of the
victims.
victims.
And she went to the door where
it was like the sister or her mom or something.
I think it might have been the sister.
Yeah, I think it was her sister.
Sat down and was like patting the ground where
her sister had died. Yeah.
And
yeah, that was a really sad moment.
Yeah.
That was just horrible.
It's bad, but it happens.
Yeah.
And it happens. You think that you hear about this, it goes on. Like there are people everywhere that are doing these types of things. And that's just, sorry to say, but that's just the way it is.
It's crazy how many, like, in the documentary, they talk about the, like, statistics for serial killers. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's fucking scary.
Like 1 in, I don't want to say 1 in 5, because I could be wrong.
Probably not 1 in 5.
1 in 5 is...
No, I don't remember. I don't know, it was something like 800 serial killers or something, or like maybe it was 80.
Yeah,
maybe it was
80. Sorry about 1 in 5, but I'm thinking like it's a lot of people.
It's more like than you would expect.
Yes.
I think it was maybe they were saying, but this was also like a statistic, not like a recent one. It was like a news report from when this was all going on. So it was like a news report from the 80s. And I think they were saying there's like somewhere around like 80 serial killers, or like that's like the general thought is that at any given time there's like 80 serial killers roaming about. And that like the FBI had believed like at least 5,000 murders in the US in the year of like 80 something had been committed by serial killers.
Yeah. And there's a difference between, you know, just like a murderer and, you know, a homicide and a serial killer.
Yeah.
And a rapist.
Well, the thing is with a serial killer, it's
a pedophile.
they're
and like they're just
their
these
murders
different
are
categories.
their murders aren't the only thing that really connects them usually is like the way a victim looks. Not really, there's no personal connection to the individual victim. Like there might be a personal connection to like with Bundy, he would murder like brunettes because his like first girlfriend was a brunette.
I think that Lucas kind of did what he did because he, you know, his mom.
Yeah, well, he murdered the people that he actually that it's proven are that he murdered are, but that doesn't make him a serial killer. It's more like he murdered people that he was close to, or like women that he was close to, and then felt like maybe betrayed him or angered him or something.
It's very confusing.
And then, but then when he's like,
it's very confusing.
a lot of like those victims that he falsely confessed to, it's like there's no actual rhyme or reason to him killing them, and that's what like people that like in research serial killers now are like, there's no way this guy's a serial killer. One, because the evidence proves it, and two, it just doesn't add up or make any sense.
Which one of them had the dad that made like the alcohol, the moonshine or whatever?
Oh, I don't know. Probably Tool, because I didn't read anything about
I forget.
Lucas's dad doing that.
But if it was him, I guess he was beginning to be an alcoholic by the age of 10.
That was probably Tool.
Yeah.
Tool almost sounds like he was maybe more vicious.
Yeah, he was.
Than Lucas.
Yeah.
And to me, it almost seems like Lucas just kind of
he
went with whatever he was told to do.
I read a quote that they spoke to each other. I think it was Lucas who. Either it was Lucas. I think it was Lucas that said the quote. He was like, yeah, Tool would practice like cannibalism, and the only reason why I didn't like it is because I didn't like barbecue sauce. So,
oh my god.
Like, they practice stuff. Like,
so crazy.
It's back then. You could.
Should we mention like random stuff like fake Becky before we sign off, or should we just tell people to go watch the documentary?
Fake Becky. Yeah, they should probably just
watch the documentary.
Watch it.
Yeah, you should watch the documentary,
Yeah.
but it's pretty crazy about fake Becky. Yep.
Fake Becky, real Becky, 600 people, 3,000 people, prison, out of prison, traveling, picking people up, just saying, hey, can I stay with you guys for a little bit? And they'd be like, hey, I'm good, I'm leaving. It is just a crazy life.
An alleged crazy life.
An alleged
Yes.
crazy life.
I mean,
I wish there were more facts.
Still actually somewhat of a crazy life.
Yes.
That's the sad thing, is there probably would be more facts if they didn't just take him for his word and didn't
That's the problem.
and didn't convince him to confess for all of this
The whole
because
problem was the shitty police work in the beginning of all these things. But you have to think about it. If there's a crime in this state and somebody comes across, like you're driving down the road or whatever, and you see like a foot. Like there's a busting out your cell phone. You have to go home to report it or go to a payphone to report it.
Yeah.
And the DNA isn't there. They have the clothing. They don't really know what happened.
Yeah, crime scenes were not treated very well back then.
Finding out who it was hard.
That's what happened with one of the murders too, is they were, I think it was that the sister who was like patting the ground, and her sister's murderer still hasn't been found, and she's been trying to do her own research, and she proved that Lucas wasn't the murderer, but the police departments in the area still won't reopen the case. But she basically said, like, they even had all this evidence. They had DNA, they had fingerprints,
Yeah, they had
footprints,
under
hair,
nails.
nail clippings. They had tons of evidence, but then because Lucas confessed, they basically like didn't take care of all of this evidence and lost it.
We don't need this because we already have
and they probably just like threw it out. So just crazy. I think some police departments too, depending on like space, after like either crime has been solved or like after a certain amount of years, they like get rid of stuff.
They might.
Or like ship it off to somewhere else, and then who knows what happens.
I have no idea. But unfortunately, this all happened back then, which...
I know. It's good though that they are still
investigating
it, solving some of the cases. And I think now with the fact that this documentary just came out and it's getting a lot of attention, I'm guessing that a lot of these closed cases will probably be re-looked into, which is good. Is there anything else you would like to add before we go?
The only thing I'm gonna add is that I'm gonna keep kind of like looking into this.
Yeah, we should do an episode on Tool. I think that's a really good idea because we mention him a lot, but I feel like I don't have that much information on him.
Plus, whatever we find out about him, we can tie into this episode about Lucas.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you guys for watching.
This
was a really long episode.
It was and is.
It is. We were a little bit all over the place again, but that's what you should just expect when you come here at this point.
Yes.
So, and if it's not what you're expecting, then you probably haven't watched our other episodes and should go back and watch them. True. Yeah. Follow us on Instagram. Give us a like, a comment, a nice comment.
Hey, you know what? Nice comment, no nice comment. I'm just glad people are saying like things, but like try to be respectful.
Try to be respectful. Don't be mean. Or I guess whatever.
Yo, if you wanna insult us, I'm not like.
Jordan doesn't care as much. I'm not gonna cry about it either. It's just like,
I don't mean that.
Come on,
I don't mean like you're really gonna cry about it.
But like, I don't know. Maybe just leave a comment that like pertains to the subject.
Yeah.
And subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next video.
Absolutely. We are the Tipsy Informants.
Yeah.
I am Jordan.
Kelly.
And we will see you guys next time. Thank you very much. Candle of Justice.
Thought that would be really cool.
It is.